So he's not coming over here? No. Okay. Yeah, feel free to hook me up. I got your white balance.
Train, that's your signal to start, right?
Yeah. Let that guy go through. You ready? Everybody ready? Okay. Officer Robert Reeves, Public Information Officer for the Irving Police Department, here to provide an update to our officer-involved shooting that we had yesterday, or last night, at Baylor Scott and White Irving's Hospital. So at approximately 8 p.m. last night, just to recap everything, our suspect is Michael McPhail, of 34 years old. He was in the hospital, had gone to the hospital around 7 p.m. for a medical issue. He was in a room there in the emergency room section. A hospital staff member went to check on him, walked in there, saw that he had a handgun on his person, and that his behavior was very unusual, if not very alarming to her. She left the room, contacted Baylor Police, and also hospital staff contacted Irving police officer that was present. That officer was at the hospital on an unrelated incident to where he had made a DWI arrest and was in the process of doing the blood draw for that offense. The Baylor officer and the Irving officer went to the suspect's room. They started trying to communicate with him and to investigate the issue of him having a gun in a prohibited place, which is the hospital there. As they're talking to him, he fired off a round in the room. The Irving officer had already gotten on the radio and said that he had a report of a man with a gun there at the hospital, so additional resources were heading to Baylor at that time. Shortly after that, at least 3 more officers showed up on scene. Those officers put on their plate carrier and grabbed their patrol rifle, which is a standard operation whenever we respond to a man with a gun calls. They start having a dialogue with him, trying to convince him to drop the gun, and he refuses to do that and ends up actually shooting at those officers. They return fire in defense of themselves and everybody there in the hospital, and subsequently shoot and kill the suspect. Nobody else in the hospital was injured. There were persons that were in the hallway. There were persons in the rooms next to this room. But no one else was injured in this incident. So we do have at least 3 officers that were involved in the shooting, and but no one else was hurt. We are wanting to let everybody know, because we've seen some information on social media, this was never an active shooter type of situation. I know that there were some calls that were up to our 911 dispatch called in because they heard shots being fired, and there was reports that it was an active shooter. That was not the case. We also have seen posts to where persons are talking about being at the hospital, being in the room next door, and it really having a traumatic effect on them. We want to let everybody know that if you are needing to speak to somebody, if you're having issues or trouble from this incident, any type of trauma or anxiety, that you can reach out free of charge to our Irving Family Advocacy Center and actually talk to someone about with counseling services. Does anybody have any questions at this time?
Did the individual have any past interaction with Irving Police?
So we do not have any previous interaction with him as far as arrest or calls for service. He does have a history, but not a history with us.
What kind of emergency he was death for?
So everybody that goes to the hospital goes to the emergency room first to try to get admitted, and so he was just there for a standard medical type of issue. It wasn't anything that was mental health related or anything along those lines. He was just because of HIPAA rules and those types of things. That's the only reason why we're not saying exactly why he was there, but he was just there because he was feeling bad and wanted to get medical attention.
Can you go into more detail about what this alarming behavior was that the staff member reported?
Yeah, so, you know, it wasn't a situation to where she walked into the room and she just walked up with someone and they're like, oh, I brought my gun, I need to figure out how to place it. It was something that his behavior and the way he was behaving was kind of odd and unusual and alarming to her, and then the fact that he had a gun intensified that worry and that concern to where she said, hey, I need to get out of this room, I need to let the police know, and I need to let them take over and handle this situation.
What was his attire? I guess, did he have the gun concealed possibly in a hoodie, or was it a t-shirt?
So those specifics of the investigation is what is still being going over right now. Body-worn camera footage is being reviewed. The investigators are working the case. So those specifics we're not going to get into releasing at this time.
Any criminal background that you might know?
He does have a criminal history, yes, but we've never arrested him ourselves. So his criminal history, I'm not going to go into his criminal history just because I'm not here to go through that list of it, but I can say that he did have a criminal history. So it's at least more than one arrest, yes, sir.
Can you give details? I know you have his name, but where he's from?
So from what we were gathering, from what we were told, he was currently living in the Irving area.
Can you say all that in Spanish now?
I do not. I cannot. And, my Spanish guy isn't available today, so I was trying to get someone here for that, but unfortunately not.
One thing, you may not have the answer, and I know depending on law enforcement agency, they don't usually say this, but are you at all considering this could be like a possible like suicide by cop situation?
You know, that is one element that the investigators will be looking at just because of the actions that he took. But right now, there's nothing that's confirming that. There's been nothing of a suicidal nature of any types of notes or anything like that left behind. But that is an element that obviously the investigators will look at.
What he was telling the officers when the officers approached him to calm him down, what was that interaction?
That specific interaction, I do not know. So, but that will be captured on the body-worn camera footage, and that may be something that's available to be released later down the road.
Do you know if the gun was legally owned by him?
I do not. I do not.
Was he a felon?
I do not know. I do not know if he was a convicted felon. I didn't run the rap sheet to see what his convictions were. I just know that he has been arrested before. Okay. Thank you. I'm gonna do another take for Smash if you need to get one for Spectrum.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll let everybody get their mics off of me.
Yeah.